going to call the meeting to order at 1:02. Lily, can we do a roll call?
Commissioner Allman, looks like he's not here yet, or he might not be joining us today, I'm not sure. Commissioner Antle?
Present.
Commissioner Barish? Here. Commissioner Doherty?
Here.
Commissioner Ebiam? Here. Commissioner Muschetti?
Present.
Commissioner Riley?
Here.
And Chair Miller.
Here. All right, I am going to just remind everyone, please make sure we turn our mics on when we speak so that we can make sure that the public can hear us in our recording. Do we have any public expression items on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move to committee matters. Approval of the minutes from the October 26, 2002 regular meeting. Do we have a motion or any changes?
I'll move approval.
Do we have a second? Second. All right. Any committee comments? Hearing none. Lily, can you do a roll call?
Commissioner Antle?
Approve.
Commissioner Barish? Yes. Commissioner Doherty?
I abstain on the grounds that I was not part of this committee at the last meeting.
Commissioner Ebiam?
Yes.
Commissioner Muschetti?
Yes.
Commissioner Riley?
Yes.
And Chair Miller.
Yes. All right, next item on the agenda is the December 2022 Measure B financial report. I'm going to hand that over to Mary Alice Williford.
Yeah, good morning. So a few things of note in the reports that you have in front of you today. The sales tax revenue for this fiscal year has been posted through September, and we're right at $2.7 million, which is 33.7% of the $8 million sales tax revenue that we projected for this fiscal year. So if this trend continues, we should hit our $8 million projected around the same time as the revenue is lowered from the 1/2 cent to 1/8, which is the end of March. So I think we're looking pretty good there for what we projected. Total sales tax revenue to date for is right at close to $43 million that we've received for the sales tax. I also just wanted to note that Q1 interest has not been posted yet, so it's not included in your report. Hopefully by next month I'll have that number for you. There's not any changes in the project account detail from last month to this month. You might have noticed that, and that's no expenses have hit during that time for the PUF or the training center. And I don't have the fiscal year 21-22 final report yet. Once the auditor closes out that fiscal year, then I will be able to provide that report for you guys. So I don't know if you have any questions or regarding anything that's in front of you today. We're all good. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to meeting. We only had one item recently that went in front of the board on consent calendar. That was the Nocton Lewis contract. It needed to be extended time-wise. No change in dollar amount, but there was an extension in the contract overall time frame. And so that did go in front of the board so that we could continue to work in Nocton Lewis and pay them as they continue to work on the psychiatric health facility that's going on Whitmore Lane. Yes.
Do you have an estimate of what stage the designs are at yet? Are they 30%? Are they?
I would say, yeah, probably like 35, 40%. There's some, you can kind of see on the project updates page, if you look at this bottom, that's sort of where the outside design, most of the internal design is pretty much done, but I think there's still a lot of questions on, can you have this here? Can you have that there? A lot of conversations on ligament, resistance. Where do you put the bed? So there's a little bit of push and pull there on making those, and small internal changes. Maybe a door needs to open differently. So that's where we're at. The outside, I think we're pretty set on the design on the outside, but there's still some questions on materials being used, solar. generator, what type of generator. You have to be able to operate 24/7 even if power goes out. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. So I'm hopeful in the next month or two, we'll probably see a pretty solid plan that'll come forward. So. Yes.
I'm not sure if this is the place to ask about it, but it's about the contract with, is it Telecare, not Telecor, Telecare?
Telecare.
Where are we with that?
So Telecare has agreed to be the provider. We have not done a contract with them because they're not at the phase of operating a facility. So it's sort of a mutual agreement. We did accept their request for proposal. We have all their documentation. They are part of the meetings. We have talked about, do they need an MOU or contract yet, and they're not at that phase yet. But they are participating in all of the review period, and they are not being reimbursed for that. That's on their own time to help Mendocino County make sure it meets standards.
So in terms of trying to project unreimbursed expenses once the sales tax, well, once they become operational, actually, that's an important number. And so how do we address that?
So we have their budget that they proposed, right? So they gave us a budget of if you decide to run a puff versus a super puff, that's what their budget was at that time. We have to be realistic that as inflation and everything changes by the time we get to operational status, that budget will probably have changed. So, right. We also know that one of the things the state is going through CalAIMS, which part of that CalAIMS is payment reform. So we also don't know, we can project what today could look like. We won't know when it opens into 2026, how payment reform will impact some of that finances or how their inflation or changes in staffing costs will impact. So we can project what it is today, which is where we've come in about 1.5. But we could also project if we wanted to go out maybe a 10 to 20% increase, I think would be something we could look at to project. But we do know we're going through payment reform right now through Medi-Cal, and that is going to impact some of the way they're funding different services.
Okay, one last question.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, there was talk about possibly selling beds to Lake County. Is that still on the table? Is that still in discussion, or?
So yeah, Lake County is interested in using our psychiatric health facility. They don't have one. And so in last conversations, it's been a little bit since we've spoken, they are definitely interested when we get our facility up and running. If we have beds, they are willing to use them. We haven't talked exactly about would they use them versus would they buy the bed. Buy the bed was kind of an old standard. It still does happen. They do have a contract for one bed at the CRT. And so they are willing to partner with us. And there's been a lot of talk about partnering on different facilities we have. It does benefit them to be able to have closer facilities for their clients and for the family members. So they're definitely interested.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Well, all right, we will move to item 3D, update and discussion regarding the status of the current Measure B projects. You have that documentation in front of you. We talked a little bit about some of the things. So the Regional Training Center, we have been doing a lot more advertising to try to get more people interested in using it. We have seen the increase in use go up a little bit recently, which is good. We'd like to get it more. We talked about the recent item that was passed. We've been working with NAMI on continuing to do community outreach and education. We continue to work with them on the Native Connection group, and their Donna is here. She could speak more to that if we have questions on that specifically. We are working with them on a potential presentation in February. There is a movie that really focuses on mental illness, and they've done some great showings across the United States where they come in, they've produced this movie about mental illness and kind of a journey and experience, and so we're hoping that maybe we might get it in Mendocino County and be able to show it And at this time, the producer is willing to come to Mendocino County for minimum cost, mainly just his travel, because he's going to be local. So really exciting if we're able to get that here. Crisis assessments and psychiatric hospitalizations, we continue to use that service. They are definitely using those funds to benefit individuals who don't have Medi-Cal. So it's been a great added feature for aftercare after people get out of crisis or out of the psych hospital. The CRT continues to be used, which is great. The Fort Bragg Crisis Respite, they definitely are moving forward with that facility. They were delayed until December 22nd, but they have made some progress. They look to hopefully have the Crisis Respite open over there March 1st. So fingers crossed that we're able to have it open March 1st. Mobile Crisis and Response, we continue to be responding with law enforcement, which is great, and we continue to recruit to fill additional spots. Hopefully we can get to 24/7. The audit, we know that's still on our agenda to work on. I think we have an ad hoc on that. And we gave an update on the psychiatric health facility. The only other update is the request for proposals, just to let you guys know we're in the process. We have a survey out. We're forming a stakeholder group. We have invited stakeholders from different parts of the community and some experts that we know that are in the substance use field. And so hopefully we will hope to have our first meeting in September so that we can get that RFP written into the board, here and to the board for approval. Any questions? Yes.
Chair Miller, I was wondering, under the crisis residential treatment report, if some of us don't remember the exact date that opened, so maybe we could just add a few more details when in this report in the future. And then I would just ask that, could you explain a little bit about the clients getting referred there and how that works if they must go through our Redwood Community Crisis Services?
So yeah, the individuals that are getting referred do need to go through Redwood because they're also running the facility. So usually it's a referral through Redwood Community Services, Crisis Services. Individuals, we did look at some stats to see how our individuals getting into the crisis residential. There was a question about where they're coming from, and we were able to show that some are coming from the emergency room directly, some off the street, so they went into crisis, they were homeless and are in the CRT for needed care, some coming out of Madrone, which is the crisis respite, so stepping up to a higher level of care, and some out of the crisis center. So that kind of shows a realm of where people are coming into the system and then going into the crisis residential treatment. Yeah.
I have a follow-up question about the CRT. Would you say that it's operating at maximum capacity? Is it regularly full, or is there room to expand or to add clients?
I think they've tried, I would say it's a mix. So I think when they, minus COVID, they've had two things. They've had some COVID outbreaks, which has not allowed them to operate at capacity, obviously, due to COVID protocols. There have been a couple incidents where they had an individual in there that they had to limit who they could put in there because the individual could be violent and not able to have roommates. So sometimes, depending on the individual that's in the facility, has impacted the ability to have it fully staffed, fully full with clients. On a general basis, what I've heard that they are keeping it at capacity as long as there's not a client issue or a issue with COVID. Yes, Sherry.
Again, I'm not sure if this is the place to ask this. At our last meeting, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about the proposal from Ford Street for funding. And my recollection was that an RFP was going to get sent out to open it up. Is that part of status?
It's not in the program status because these are
Right.
really about the programs we approved and moving forward. The status is that we have a survey out that we have worked with NAMI to get out in our community, and it's been sent around throughout multiple avenues. We created a QR code, and we've been working with trying to get a good number of responses. We also are we just started the process of forming a stakeholder group that will be a mix of agencies that are impacted by substance use and also some substance use experts. So really reaching out to some different experts in the field that we cross over with. And also we've reached out to the Native community to get 1 or 2 representatives from their communities to sit on that stakeholder group. And so we are forming the stakeholder group with the plan to have our first meeting in January. We think we can get it done in 3 or 4 meetings and then get the RFP written, brought back here into the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments, questions? All right.
Yeah, I just want to say and draw attention to the parity numbers. This is huge. The success that's being had with Measure B funding, providing a pathway for people who've not had any kind of aftercare from crisis. This is amazing. So anyone out there who's not had a chance to look at this chart, the numbers may seem small by comparison to population, but these are people who are completely falling through the cracks before. So this is really encouraging to see.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, we will move on to 3E. Discussion regarding the financial plan after sales tax is reduced effective April 1st, 2023. And I think Commissioner Evian, that's yours.
Thank you. Well, at our last meeting, we approved creating this financial plan, and I was just wanting to see what the plan for the plan is. So that's why I asked to have this put on. I mean, the end of the 0.5% sales tax is rapidly approaching. So, yeah, I guess, I don't know if you can provide any detail or anything like that.
So I can't provide a lot of detail yet. I know we passed it in the last meeting, a conversation and regarding to work with a behavioral health fiscal team to definitely look at a plan. We are also, one of the things that we're hoping as we look at that plan, we are working with our facilities department. Part of that plan has to include maintenance of the 3 facilities we're building. And so we're waiting for them to get us that maintenance cost. We followed up. We are hopeful that they will be back in February at this committee to discuss what that looks like. We also had the question regarding the prudent reserve that got held off to February because we're waiting for those figures from facilities to talk about what is the operational cost and maintenance cost for our 3 facilities. So once we have that, an estimate of that, we'll continue to look at that. We're developing the financial plan based on what we think, including the psychiatric health facility. Could the CRT need some funding in the near future based on changes with Cal Ames? And one of the big pieces we're waiting for that needs to be part of that financial plan is the long-term viability of our buildings and making sure we can keep them up.
So did I understand correctly that the discussion about the prudent reserve is linked to these long-term costs? And so it would be reasonable to wait with making any kind of final determination about what the prudent reserve will look like until we have that other information.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we talked about, do we need a capital facilities reserve or does the prudent reserve work for both? And we wanted to get the facilities cost before we make a decision on does the prudent reserve meet our needs or do we need a capital facilities reserve? And so I don't think we can make that decision until we have some numbers to look at, which we don't have today.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Any comments or questions? All right. We will move to 3F, discussion of possible action regarding the Mental Health Treatment Act Citizens Oversight Committee meeting calendar for 2023. As you remember, at the last meeting, we voted to go to every other month. So we would be meeting 6 times in 2023. And so any comments, questions, approval of the calendar as it is, any changes?
You know, we approve the county master calendar for the Board of Supervisors coming the 10th of January. There are some Wednesdays where it's a full closed session, so it would impact a few of us in that case. But I can't tell you what that calendar is at this point, so it may impact this.
We could move forward with this knowing we have to make changes, if we want to do that, so that we have a date in February and knowing we may need to change it. That works for everyone? Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I move approval.
We need
I'll second.
okay. Any comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? All right. We do, did you, since you came in late, did you have any public expression you wanted to do before we move on? Okay, all right. Okay, we were just gonna wrap up, so I wanted to make sure if you had something, you got to say it. Yeah, of course. No, that's okay, that's okay. All right, so we will move on to committee reports. Lily?
I'll do,
Excuse me, you didn't have a vote.
yeah.
All right, we forgot to vote? Oh, yeah. All right, roll call, Lily, for the calendar.
Commissioner Ansel,
Yes.
Commissioner Barish,
Yes.
Commissioner Doherty. Yes. Commissioner Ebium,
Yes?
Commissioner Musketti,
Yes.
Commissioner Riley,
Yes.
and Chair Miller.
Yes. All right, committee member report outs. Lily?
Commissioner Ansel,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Barish,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Doherty,
No report.
Commissioner Ebium,
I don't have a report, but I have a question from an earlier agenda item. Is that, can I ask it now? Is that all
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when you talked about the financial plan after the sales tax is reduced, you said that we would work with the behavioral health, bless you, fiscal team? Who comprises that team?
That's Mary Alice's team that you work with every month? Mary Alice's team? The team you work with every month, that's the fiscal team.
Gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Musketti,
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Riley,
No report.
and Chair Miller.
No report. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, we will go ahead and end the meeting, or adjourn the meeting.